How many women composers have you heard of? I've been a practicing classical musician for almost 20 years, and I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times I've played a piece of music written by a woman composer. History has told us that all the great composers have been men. In the past, women were not allowed to become composers. Let me tell you a story. In the 18th century, there was a girl who was a musical genius. She loved to compose, and she became one of the best pianists in Europe. But one day, her father came storming into her room, and he said, "Stop! You can't do this anymore." I can only imagine the heartbreak that she felt, hearing those words from her father. This is the story of a girl named Nannerl Mozart, who is better known as the sister of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Imagine the music we could have enjoyed if she had been allowed to continue composing. This was not an isolated incident. Many women, such as Ethel Smith, Fanny Mendelssohn, and Lily Boulanger, have had a hard time becoming composers just because they were women. But what about in Australia nowadays? Surely this doesn't happen anymore. Whilst this situation might not happen here, some aspects of that old culture have come into our own. Right now in Australia, 25% of our composers are women, and that's a 10% increase over the last 20 or so years. Additionally, since the 1980s, representation of women composers in Australian concert programs has increased from less than 2% to around 20% in contemporary performance groups. This was due to a series of number of positive discrimination strategies that occurred, including an increased number of commissions awarded to women composers and more performances and festivals dedicated to their works. My research focuses on 3 Australian women composers who established their careers during this period of affirmative action. These composers are the sound artist Ros Bandt, orchestral composer Lisa Lim, and contemporary composer Kate Moore. I plan to use a series of in-depth interviews to help me write biographical narratives, which in turn will inform my own musical analysis of their works. Ultimately, I would like to know what the impact of all this positive discrimination was and what it means to be an Australian woman composer in the world today. Whilst it might be too late for poor Nannerl Mozart, it is not too late for us to support our women composers. My hope is that in the future, our daughters will feel encouraged to compose and not just become another name lost in history. Thank you.